Good afternoon and welcome to Smarta Startup Loan webinar, how to fast track your 10K government business loan. My name's Daniel, I'm head of content here at Smarta. I'm joined by Nima, who is head of marketing, and Austin Blaylock, who is founder of Bluestack Digital. Guys, you want to say hello?
Hi, how's it going?
Hi everyone. Okay, thanks Daniel for the introduction.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we'll get started. So we're a couple minutes late, guys. Just to sort of run through what the webinar will look like so everyone can know. We want to make it as interactive as possible and quite informal. So I'm going to speak to Austin and just ask him to tell us a little bit about his business and how it's been going since he launched it in May and what his plans are for the future. What would be really great is that if from now all the way throughout you can put questions in, Daniel will pick them up. If you have any specific questions about either the startup loan and the process or specifically about how to run a business, anything to do with marketing, fundraising or sales or any kind of PR tips you need, do put them in and Daniel will in about 15-20 minutes start asking questions so we can give you some feedback. What would be great is if you also tell us what you are running and what company you hope to run so that we can make the answers as specific as possible to you. So yeah, just keep putting the questions into Daniel, please. In the meantime, please join me in welcoming Austin to the panel. And if you could just speak to everyone here, Austin, a little bit about Bluestack Digital, what you do, what your plans are, and explain sort of why you started it.
Okay, so my business is kind of a one-stop shop for digital content creation. So if someone wanted a website with, photo, video, graphic content, then the idea is I can provide all those services for them without them having to go anywhere else. So, at the same time, all those things can be done separately. My plan for the future is that hopefully within a couple of years, I'll be employing someone to kind of run the website side of things, and I'll be able to concentrate more on the film and photo side of things, which is kind of where my passion is. And the thing I found with a lot of what people actually want is they want something to build on. So whether I create a website for someone that in 3 years time they go to someone else to manage it or to update it, it's the original content they want to hang on to. So an example would be I've built my dad's website from scratch for a number of years, but there's still a lot of the original content which is on there a few years ago, which is still great and people still love to look at now. It's just had, the website's just had a facelift. So that's the kind of stuff that I do.
Okay, that's great. Yep.
So I was going to say, where I started out from was kind of a completely different place. So I've been doing full-time youth work for 3 years, and over those 3 years, I kept getting people asking me to, build them websites, to make them videos and stuff. I just found I didn't have the time to fulfill all those things. And at the time, I didn't think I was good enough to get paid to do it, so I'd do quite a lot of stuff for free. And it was eventually in February this year, there were so many people asking me to do work for them, I just felt I had to kind of take this leap. And I think I came across the Smarta Start Up Loans through
great,
Facebook,
Austin.
and that's what linked in.
Okay, cool. Okay, cool. I think that leads nicely on to my next question. So what I found is that the one sort of consistent thing across every person we've ever interviewed on smarta.com over the past 5 years is that all of them say they wish they'd started earlier. So obviously there's this fear of, what will happen, and running a business is a very difficult thing, and making that decision to start out can be tough. So obviously I know you had quite a lot of demand, which could be quite helpful in making that decision. But what I'd love to know is, what other factors were there in sort of making that jump? So what was your main fears and how did you overcome them and go on to launch the business? Because I think a lot of the people we're speaking to today will either be doing it part-time or will be in the idea phase looking to launch it. And I think it'll be good for them to know that you don't necessarily need to quit your job just yet to launch the business, and you can actually start to test the idea and test the market and launch the business way before you make it a full-time commitment. So it'd be great to hear what it was that inspired you.
Yeah, so I think the one thing people kind of tend to box things into certain amounts of hours they can dedicate to stuff. But if you really want to start a business, you've always got to look at the long-term plan. So, you know, in 5 years' time, where are you going to be? And if all it takes is 3 months of just back-breaking work of doing, you know, 60-hour weeks or whatever it takes to get it going, then that's the thing you have to do. And that was the thing that I was most afraid of, that I wouldn't actually have the, you know, the time on top of everything else I was doing to actually make it work. And I think the thing that inspired me the most was actually the friends I have around me, pitching them this idea and actually getting their support. And it wasn't just, yeah, it's a great idea, go for it. They were, you know, constructive. They told me which were the right bits I should go for first, what I should leave alone, what I'm rubbish at. So, you know, having a friend tell you that actually I'm pretty rubbish with paperwork, and that's something I've got to get sorted if I want to make this work, that motivated me to actually get on and make that work. And so when it came to all the forms and stuff for the Smarta loan, that started to put me in the right mindset of what I would need to do to run a business on my own.
Okay, that's fantastic. One of the things that we get asked a lot as well when we hold events for our sort of startup loans applicants is about just what you said, which is that they're afraid to maybe necessarily share their ideas, and therefore they miss out on the great feedback that you've just mentioned from friends and family and those they trust about what they do need to improve and what they are already great at, and perhaps feedback on how they can improve the proposition of the product or service. What I've always said to people is that you shouldn't necessarily avoid talking about your idea because you're afraid of someone nicking it. And it would be great to know, just from your own personal experiences, if that's the case, or who you first approached and how much did you tell them? Was the feedback useful? Was the original idea you had for Bluestack Digital exactly what it looks like today, or since you've launched it, has there been feedback you've sort of taken on board because of having spoken to people that's now put you in a better place?
See, the thing I always try and keep in mind is that everything's been done. There's that many people out there that if you come up with a really good idea, the chances are someone else will have come up with that idea as well. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just, it's what you're going to do with it. If you're too afraid to take it forward, then that other person's going to succeed obviously more than you are. So when I first started out doing the research on if I could even make this business work, I looked at probably between 80 and 100 different businesses in the kind of the York and Leeds area to see how many were going to be doing the thing that I wanted to do, which is kind of the one-stop shop thing. And I found quite a few. So what I did is I kind of looked at them as objectively as possible to see if I could see from what their work, if they had the exact same ideas as I do. You know, how many people were they employing? What equipment were they using? Is there something I could actually do differently from them? And there are quite a few businesses that do a fantastic standard of work. You know, they've been doing it for 20 years and they've progressed and advanced along with the technology and just the way things are now. And at the same time, I found businesses that were, you know, stuck in Windows 95 era that were still using clip art and things. And so looking at that, I knew that I could fit right into the market. The biggest problem I had with trying to be unique was just the business name. And that's always a struggle, you know, like trying to find the title of a book. And all that takes is just writing down a whole load of different names, things that you like, things, you know, that it says about the business, and just taking it to friends. Never be afraid of sharing it and be afraid of what friends and family might think. Even if it's negative, there's always something that you can take out of it that will help shape your business.
I think I agree with you there. What I would say is that feedback is like Christmas presents, right? So if someone gives you another pair of socks and you don't really want to wear them, you don't have to, but at the time you sort of just put on the game face and you accept it. Whereas if they were to give you a new watch, you will probably go to wear it. So, you know, you're the one with the business idea, and at the end of the day, you know the industry you're going into probably better than some of the people you will be getting the feedback from. And there will always be people who don't think it's possible and that you won't be able to make a successful business out of something. But you should take all the feedback and then pick the ones that are actually useful in helping you get further along with your business, and not necessarily take on board everything, because at the end of the day, it is one person's feedback. And if one person says something you're doing is really bad, but 10 other people absolutely love it, you should take it with a pinch of salt, I think. So feedback should be taken on board, I think, but you probably know what you're doing, and you should use it to base your decisions on, not necessarily just do everything everyone says is the right thing.
Yeah, and the other thing is to try and get advice from people that either do similar work or have a similar business to you. So I'm doing wedding photography at the moment as well, and a wedding photographer I really like, who's a good friend. I went to university with him. I just did a wedding last week, and I asked him, what did he think of the photos? He said, yeah, they're okay, but they're quite safe. And I kind of thought, oh, great, I didn't do a good job. And then he said, I know you can do better. And so it's getting alongside those kinds of people that can really build you up is the important thing.
I think that's a really good shout, actually. So one of the main things we found is that as much as it's great to get feedback from family and friends, it is worth sort of finding people within your own industry or within the sort of small business owner networks out there who are going through a similar journey or a similar stage as you, because the experiences you're having are going to help you sort of be closer to them. So, for example, we hold monthly events where we get 200 to 300 business owners into a room and do different themes, where it's marketing, sales, PR. They're totally free to attend. There's free wine, free food, and it's really great content, and it's really informal, just like today, and people could put their hand up at any time and ask questions, and the panelists stick around afterwards. They speak to all the guests, and what I find is people who come for the first time and haven't been to either ours or other business networking events in the past, they find it really useful to be around so many sort of high energy people who will, even when they have negative criticism, it's only negative because they think you can do better, and they'll come up with ways to help you do better. They'll introduce you to contacts who can make you do better, rather than just believing you can't do it. Because I think there is a divide between those who just want to sort of, do their day job, and there's nothing wrong with that. Some people want that security. Other people who want to launch a business, if you only speak to people who don't have a business owner mentality, you'll always get feedback that can sort of take away the energy from you, or drain away that positivity that you need, because running a business is hard, and you need to be able to overcome every single obstacle you come across. So I'm wondering, obviously you spoke to people in your industry and other business owners. What have you found to be the most useful aspect of sort of getting to know other business owners in your area? And do you yourself regularly meet up with others? Do you have sort of peer mentors who you speak to about your business, who are maybe from other industries too?
Yeah, so I guess just from over the years, from always been interested in this kind of work, I've picked up people along the way who I've stayed in contact with, whether it's on Facebook or actually being able to meet up with them. People who have been in the industry for a good number of years, who have got way more experience than me, who can either point me in the right direction for, whether it's contacts with people, or who will look at my work and not see me as a threat, or not see me as someone who doesn't really know what they're doing. They look at my stuff very objectively. And if you can find those people and get to know those people, and meeting up with them, just going out for coffee, shadowing them, if you can spend a day going along with them, whatever it might be, whatever your business is, it's not being afraid to take advice from someone who is younger than you or older than you. I mean, like this photographer I was talking about, he's 4 years younger than me, 5 years younger than me, and he's been doing photography longer than I have. And that's one thing that you've got to realize, that people doing businesses are all ages, all backgrounds, all experience, and not to put those in boxes, and not to be afraid to take advice from someone younger than you.
Okay, that's great. I think what would be helpful is, because obviously the title of the event is about the government-backed loans that we do, is although there may be some questions from the audience about that and how the process is and how they can get through it easier, I think it would be worth us, just before we carry on about going more in depth to do with sort of technology and digital marketing and how that can help small businesses, talk a little bit just about, once you did find us on Facebook, as you mentioned earlier, what the process was like, because I think that's the most unbiased way of presenting to everyone here today, how you found it, what you needed to submit, so what documentation was required, how hard or easy it was, and I guess what you think could be improved. Because I'd like to be very transparent with these kind of things. So I'm totally happy for you to just give us a little bit of an overview of that.
Okay, so I must have seen it pop up in my, on the adverts down the side of my Facebook for quite a while. And every time I looked at it, I thought, oh, that seems like a good idea, but, I probably won't get approved for the money. And I clicked on it and I looked at all the info, and my first thought was, this is too good to be true. Someone's actually going to be able to, it's not based on my past history. It's based on my valid business idea. And I guess that was because I've tried to do other things in the past and apply for other funding in the past, and I've never been successful. And looking through the Smarta website and actually how to get the startup loan, it was just so clearly laid out. I'm not bigging this up because I've now got one. This was it. When I looked at it, I thought, this is fantastic. Finally, someone's laid it out this simply, and they're actually going to give me support in my business to get me going, which I thought was fantastic. I've not seen that anywhere else.
Okay, great. I'd like to think it was a smooth experience. I think the key thing is that we didn't actually first get involved with the startup loan scheme when it was only available to under 30s, because a lot of our demographic are over 30 as well, and they're people who might be wanting to make that jump from a corporate life. And it was only once the government approached Shah, our founder, again and sort of said, look, guys, you've got a very big network of small business owners, and we'd really love for you to be one of our first partners who can give it to anyone over 18. So that was when we sort of jumped on board, and it's just been over a year now, and I'm really happy to say that we've actually funded just over 200 businesses, and some of the businesses are fantastic. But what I would say is that a lot of the people who we find in the beginning of the application process, the reason they don't go on to apply is because obviously you have to submit a business plan and a cash flow forecast, and that's quite a scary thing, and myself included. When I first saw the cash flow forecast template, it can be quite daunting, but we've learned a lot over the last year, and we've tried to make it as easy as possible. So we have templates now. We actually have started giving out a business plan we approved last month, which is slightly anonymized from one of our recipients who was happy to share, just so we can give as many tools as possible to people to show them that you don't need to write a 50-page or 40-page business plan. The only reason we ask for a business plan is just to show that you have gone out and researched and decided, there is a market for what I want to do. This is how much I want to price it. These are my competitors who are indirect or direct, and therefore this is how I'll make money. And I think, business plan aside, those questions are stuff that anyone who wants to launch a business should be asking themselves. So here at Smarta, we do sort of pride ourselves on being able to not just look at an application when it comes in and say yes or no, but actually receive the application, and that's just the beginning point of when we work with that person. So that's when we start calling them. Our financial director himself gets involved and actually supports people with their cash flow forecasts, shows them why things should be the way they are. And I think that sort of planning and that support from people of his level is something that puts our loanees in a very good position for their future growth. So obviously, if there's anyone here who does want specific help with their cash flow business plan, give us a call at the end of this. Daniel will send an email with our details. And, we've got business planning experts and cash flow experts in-house who you can call every single day of the week, 9 to 5, and they're happy to help. So definitely do just get in touch if there's anything that seems a little bit too difficult or you just want a bit of clarification on. I think moving that aside, it would be interesting to hear a bit more, Austin, about you were talking about the other business owners that you work with and stuff, and it brought to mind for me that as a small business, collaboration with other small businesses is quite a big way of sort of outdoing the bigger corporates, you could say, because the one thing that small businesses can do, which those companies can't, is move quick, and they can build partnerships with other like-minded business owners. So I'm just wondering what your thoughts are in terms of collaborating with other business owners, and if it's something you have done or are thinking of doing, and what advice you would have for others in terms of how to reach out to businesses that you might want to work with. So starting to build those steps for a partnership.
One of the best tools or that I found for being able to let people know about your business is through word of mouth. So if you work with someone and you do, say you're a joiner and you build a cabinet for a cafe and they love it, someone comes into the cafe and goes, oh, I'm interested in that. The cafe owner can give such an amazing testimony, to that joiner, more than just saying, oh, here's the guy's website, go check him out. That kind of physical engagement is an amazing tool to use. And so if you can work with other businesses, build a good partnership with them, and then just get them to say, if someone needs, say you are a wedding photographer and you hook up with a cake maker, getting to know that person and then being able to share the business. So if someone says, oh, I don't need a photographer, but I need a cake maker, you can pass that on. And it's building up that web of contacts that way, rather than just doing it all digitally or just doing it over the phone, is an amazing way to get stuff. So I quite often get someone who will message me and say, I got your contacts through so-and-so, they highly recommended you. And I think people respond to that more than just getting an email or, seeing an advert pop up somewhere. So if you can collaborate with other small businesses, go for it.
I think another thing I would say, which I've found here at Smarta is quite interesting, is that in the sort of startup and small business entrepreneurship world, people are very willing to help. And if you just ask, some people will bend over backwards to help you as and when they can. And some of these people will own very successful businesses with dozens of employees. And yet, at the end of the day, everyone likes to have their ego stroked a little bit. And there's a difference between sucking up to them and actually just being positive about what they do. So what I always say is that if there is someone you admire, a business owner that you want to sort of follow in the footsteps of, there's no reason why you shouldn't go on LinkedIn and send them a connection message and personalize it, or get their email address and send them an email and be very specific about what you're emailing them about. Because with Shah here and Matt, if they get an email that's pages and pages long saying, can you please read my business plan? I think you want to invest. It's amazing. Can you introduce me to investors? 99% of the time, it's not going to get a response because they're very busy people. But if it's very short and it specifically says, Shah, I saw your book in the #1 bestseller list for 13 months and I've read through it and I love it. I love what you do. I love what you do with Smarta. I want to start a business that holds events for business owners too in this city. I'd really love to pick your brains for 10 minutes on a call, or maybe I can meet you for a coffee at your offices. Please let me know if you can do this over the next few weeks. She's a lot more likely to just quickly press reply and say, I can do this date at this time. And that's your opening to go and meet these people and really pick their brains and find out really useful information. But what we find, and I've done this myself millions of times, is they can be quite daunting to just send that message. But if you don't ask, you're not going to get. And if you keep asking the right people in the right way and you hone that skill of how you ask, people will get back to you and help you with your ideas. And it won't just be business owners of your level. It will be people who you can look up to as business mentors in a way. Have you got any stories to share of sort of things like that where you've reached out to others or gone to events and met people?
Yeah, there's a graphic design business in town near where I live. And I've kind of known the guy who runs it for quite a while, but he's he's like twice my age, and we've never really properly sat down and had a good business conversation. But he knows loads of people that I could benefit from in terms of getting work, and just sending him a message and saying, look, I'm just starting out. Here's my website. Here's my portfolio. Could we meet up, or is there anybody you can put me in touch with? To me, it kind of almost felt like I was going to my dad and saying, can I borrow a huge pile of money to buy a new car, kind of thing. And it really felt daunting, but at the same time, it's the whole thing of, what have you got to lose? And just by sending that short message, you don't really have anything to lose. I mean, they might read it, it might appear in their junk. And all it takes is a bit of follow-up. And I think that's the main thing that people are afraid to do, is just to follow up with someone. So don't feel like you're going to nag them by, 3 days later sending them another message saying, did you get my previous email? I still want to, chat to you. Can we meet up sometime or whatever it might be?
I think I
Do those
agree. Generally,
follow-ups.
when you do follow up, it is 100% the follow-up is a major part of whether you actually hear back from them or not.
Yeah, because then it shows that you're interested, that you want to pursue something, and that you're going to be dedicated enough to not just leave it at one message, and a month later you send them another email saying, "Hi, did you get my email?" They're just going to ignore that. So doing regular follow-ups is a good thing. Don't feel like you're nagging that other person, because people will take interest.
I think some good stuff that people will hear can use today is a software called Contactually. It's a free CRM, and what it does is it takes your email address and your contacts from all across social media, and it sort of tells you the last time you actually contacted them. And it's a really good way of making sure that you build your networks and therefore are one of the people that is immediately thought of when people who know you want to refer someone for a service in a certain direction. So you have different buckets, they call it, and you put people, whether it's colleagues, friends, family, warm leads, cold leads, people I want to work with, people I want to mentor me. And you put everyone in these different buckets, and you choose rules for each bucket of how often you want to try and be in touch with them. And, something like that really automates the process of every morning you come in and you just see these are the 5 people I've not really reached out to recently, whether or not they have replied to you. And you just send them another nice message and you see what's going on. And it's stuff like that where you keep making sure that, you're not messaging people every day or every week, but you are on top of the people who you do want to be in contact with and the relationships that are most important to you. And that when you do think of something relevant to refer on to someone else, you do that, because then they will return that. So one of the principles we have here is give, and then ask. So you should at least give 3 times before you ask anything. And always when people ask us, some advice from the editorial team or myself about who should I speak to regarding this, I always go out of my way to introduce them to anyone who is a previous Smarta 100 winner, for example, who might be able to help them. So for people who don't know, the Smart 100 Awards we've run with O2 for 5 years, and every year we pick 100 small businesses that we think are a great cross-section of the UK. It's unashamedly unscientific, and we do base it on cool businesses that we think are up and coming. So there'll be some tech companies making a lot of money and fast growth, but then there'll also be the sort of sole trader doing something very innovative with the way they market themselves. So we're just looking for a true cross-section across the UK. And we now have an alumni of 400 winners, with another 100 being announced in the next few weeks once the deadline passes this Friday. And, if you go onto our Smarta 100 website, you can see who all those companies are. And a lot of them have gone on to become household names now. And even still, I'm very happy if anyone on this webinar right now wanted to sort of specifically reach out to anyone on there to make an introduction and leave it to you to go from there, because I think we've spoken a lot about this, and for me to practice what I preach, I'm very willing to, if any of you who are here today want to email me after, Daniel will give you my contact details. I'll make you the introductions. Obviously, I won't choose to all 400, but pick your targets well. I think, Austin, what would be great is if you could talk a little bit to us just about what you found difficult, because I know we've spoken about a lot of what you found going great and why you started, but it'd be interesting to know that once you did finally get up and running, what were some of the first complications that arose that you might not have actually considered? Because I think a great part of this is being able to share your experience as a business owner with people who might be a few months behind of things they can look out for and maybe they can even avoid with your experience.
I guess a couple of things that I didn't see coming really. One was competition. So I think it was within the first couple of weeks of starting the business, I had approached a shop who didn't have a website, who they definitely needed one, and pitched them an idea, told them a price. They thought, this is fantastic, yeah, it's great. I told them all about how to integrate social media and all this kind of stuff. And then I had a couple of follow-up meetings, and I think it was a week later, they turned around to me and said, oh, someone's offered us it cheaper. See you later. And it was just a big shock to think, oh, I'm already offering it cheaper than most of the other competition. And then, suddenly someone has swiped this out from underneath me. And the hardest thing from that was actually not to just let that get me down and think, oh great, it's not going to work, my first big job has gone, was to actually just keep going and think, you know what, there's plenty more businesses out there that need my services. And it probably took me a good week at least to get past that. And that's what I wasn't expecting. I wasn't expecting to have to deal with that kind of stuff straight away.
Okay, great. I think that's really useful information. Daniel, I think now that we're sort of just over halfway through, it would be great if you can join us back on the call and sort of put out any questions from the audience for us, and especially for Austin.
Yeah, sure. Joe, who runs a photography business, wanted to know a bit more about the mentoring. He wanted to know what your experience with mentoring was like.
In terms of mentoring, I found someone who was young, who was contemporary, and who was kind of like-minded in the same in the way that we're kind of I don't want to say it without sounding too like a cliche. I guess just compatible in terms of our personalities. So we kind of like similar things. And so approaching him and saying, look, can I shadow you on a couple of these photo shoots? He was more than happy for me to do that. And it was, you know, it's all about making sure that you can make the effort to go and shadow them. So I drove up to Carlisle, all the way up in the north, just next to Scotland, to shadow him on a wedding. And it was basically just being open to anything that he said. And one of the great things he said was to just go for it. I was kind of the secondary photographer, so anything I got for him was a bonus. And he said, just go for it. Just don't feel nervous or worried that you're not going to get the right shot. And experiment. And he just kind of gave me the freedom to go around and do what I wanted to do, as opposed to saying that I had to get certain things and being too controlling. So if you can find a mentor who isn't controlling, who doesn't try and make you do the same thing that they do or shoot in the same style that they do, then that would be the best mentor to go for.
Okay, I think that's great that you're able to share that experience specifically about that business, because you've gone and done that yourself. I think that's really helpful. What I would just say as well is that through our scheme, once you are approved and given the finance, we ask you what are the 3 key sort of areas that you're looking for help in. So as an example, if you would say to me, I need some help with marketing, sales, and some legal stuff, we would then go and find someone who is from one of our previous award winners and assign them to you as a mentor, and you get 15 hours of mentoring across the first year after you've received the loan. So you get 2 hours a month for the first 3 months, and then 1 hour a month for the next 9 months. And we're quite flexible in that if 5-6 months down the line you were to come back to us and say, you know what, I'm looking to raise a bit more money now, I want an angel investor, so as such I really want someone who can help me with my financials, and I don't need so much help anymore with my legals because I've gotten rid of all my trademarks and stuff, then we can actually be flexible enough to assign you a new mentor for the remainder of that year. So that's obviously offered completely free. I think what I want to do today, which is a special deal as well, is anyone who registers on the link that Daniel will send out after this webinar in the next 24 hours and goes on to apply and receive funding at any time, whether it's a few days from now, weeks or months, we will give you a mentoring session with members of the Smarta team in our office. So you'll be invited in. I can get help from our CFO, CTO, and COO, as well as different departments. So that's just a really great opportunity to thank you for coming along today. What I'd like to do is just keep going through questions, if that's possible, Daniel.
I was just going to say that it's also worth pointing out that as a mentor, you might get one of us in the Smarta office. Both myself and Nima are mentors as well. We look after people on the Smarta Start Up Loan scheme. So, for example, I'm looking after someone now dealing with content, dealing with online social media, that sort of thing. So there's plenty of options out there. We've actually got Alexandra has written in a couple of questions. I'm going to combine the two, to be honest with you. She said, I think they're both for Austin. How did you do in the first 3 months? And when did you feel that you were starting to make money from your business?
Before I'd got the loan and knew that everything was going to go ahead, I'd kind of tried to get into the mindset that my first 6 months were going to be really, really tough. And I was going to have to really work at it to make it work. And the first 3 months were a lot tougher than I thought. And the main reason for that was because I didn't manage my time properly enough so that I had dedicated time for the part-time youth work and dedicated time to the business. I'd mixed the two far too much. And so whether you're starting it part-time or full-time, being able to block things out and saying you're going to give 5 hours here and 5 hours there, or you've got a project coming up or a project that needs to be released, and giving it a block of time, and then, whether it's in your calendar or letting people know that actually for those 5 hours you're busy and you can't be contacted. That's the way to do things. And I think I guess I found that out the hard way. So I mean, my phone it goes off all the time. It's actually been flashing like mad now. I think I've got 3 missed calls, and I can call them back later. It's making sure that you don't let other people just take up all your time. Actually, you've got to give the time that you need to the business, and whether that's ignoring relatives or friends for a few hours, they'll get over it. And they're the ones I found that were taking up most of my time. And the other thing as well within the first 3 months was still people asking things for mates rates, a discounted price. And I think I stupidly said yes to a couple of people when I should have actually said no. To make this work, I've got to charge you the full rate. I just can't take a discount. Otherwise, I'm not going to make enough money, even just to make ends meet. And so that's the important thing, is to realize that actually what you provide is worth something. The kind of the second 3 months have actually picked up a lot better. And it's just been through networking and finding the right person. I mean, someone offered me a web job a couple of weeks ago and said, how much would you charge an hour? And these guys are a charity, so I thought, oh, great, I can't charge them too much. And I said, oh, I don't know, $10 an hour, because they were going to give me quite a few hours. And they said, well, yeah, that would be good, but you're worth more. We're going to give you 20 quid an hour. So I thought, brilliant. And all it takes is for you to properly value yourself, and to understand that your services are worth a lot to a lot of people, to know that you can make something work. So I know that my services for certain things, photography or video, and are worth a certain amount, and that actually I can charge that amount without feeling guilty about taking someone else's money, because I know I can provide a good service. Other people have liked my work, professionals, not just friends that are going to tell me I'm good because they want to get something for free. And that's the kind of the mindset you've got to get into. And if you get into that early on, it builds a great foundation for the rest of the business years.
I think you make a good point there, Austin. I spoke to another business owner.
Do you have
Sorry, Nima? Sorry, Austin.
So I was just going to say, Daniel, do you want...
Yeah, sorry, I don't know what happened there. As I was saying, I spoke to someone else who runs a fairly large business. They turn over a couple of million a year. And they told me that one of the things that they found was that they run an open culture business, and they basically discuss with their employees what they want to earn. And they found that in the main, people were quite embarrassed to oversell themselves, and that it's a real process of self-evaluation that you have to go through to understand just how much you are worth. Which is, I was a freelancer myself, so I completely understand where you're coming from. We've got one question here from Nadine while Nima's sorting something out in the office about repayments. I think she just wants to know about the process, about how long you had to wait before you started repaying back the loan.
All right. So
Was
It was the following month after I got the loan.
okay from the month after the loan. All right. Okay. And did you find any problems with that at all, with it affecting the cash flow of your business, or were you set up ready for it?
I'd made sure that at least the first couple of months I had a contingency amount of money in place. So before that, putting money, before the business had even started, putting some money aside to make sure I could cover basic business costs. And this is where it comes down to being organized and making sure that direct debits and money are all in the right bank accounts together and not separated, which was my unfortunate mistake on either month 2 or 3. I suddenly realized that the direct debit was not set up on my business account. So again, it's just little things like that. Staying organized helps you to worry less about, where money is. And in terms of how much money I can get in from the business and how much the business costs are actually pretty low, even with the loan repayments, and actually how much I can earn. So I don't need to do that many projects in a month to be able to cover everything. And again, that's what helped me to make the leap and think, actually, I can make this work.
That makes sense. Sorry, I'm frog in my throat there. That makes a lot of sense. Do you know, as you work in sort of the technology side of business, you work a lot in social media and things like that. Could you tell anybody any emerging technologies or anything online that they should look into, invest in to help their business along?
Yeah, so if you have a website and you kind of deal with a lot of clients, or you want to be able to pick up more clients through your website, there's this plugin you can get, which my website's based on WordPress platform, so it was a pretty easy plugin. This also plugs into other standard HTMLs and stuff like that. It's called Zopim. That's Zopim. And what it does is it puts a little chatbot on your website, and that links to your smartphone. So if someone goes on my website, gives me a little notification and says that someone has visiting, it tells me the platform that they use, the operating system, and the country they're located in. So it's funny seeing people from Canada and America checking out pictures on my website. And I was recommended it by someone who gets nearly 50% of their clients through that chatbot. I never really thought anything like that could really work. And he gets loads of work through it. So I've signed up for it. It's really easy. Notification straight to my smartphone wherever I am. I don't have to be next to my computer or anything. And it's starting to put things into perspective for me, who actually visits my where people in the world actually visit my site from, and who are realistically who I can get work through. So that's definitely worth looking at.
That's Zopim, Zopim. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, I'll make sure that goes out in the show notes after the end of this, so that everyone else can see it. It's not a problem. Sorry, carry on.
Okay, that's free for so you can put that you can have like one chat going at any one time. Obviously, if you've got a massive business and several websites or people are connected, you would be able to pay for an enterprise account. But the free service, you can stick it on as many websites as you want, but you only get to engage with one chat at a time. But I mean, as a sole trader, that's fantastic for me.
That sounds amazing, because it's all about engagement with customers, isn't it? It's all about getting in touch with your customers and being able to, them being able to get hold of you and being able to know that there's a human at the other end of the line, as it were, I guess. Do you use any kind of CRM in your business?
Sorry, say that again?
Do you use any kind of analytics or CRM?
Yeah, so on WordPress, I use it's a free plugin for WordPress called Jetpack, and when I've So a wedding I did last week, I was able to use a drone to take an aerial shot of the whole wedding group, and I stuck that on Facebook and linked that back to my website, and it was interesting to see the spike in views on my website to when I'd actually posted that out. And Jetpack was a free plugin. There's plenty of free plugins out there.
Yeah.
And so just on that one day, I'd had over 500 views from just, I don't know, about 25 likes on Facebook.
That's pretty astounding.
And then you can see where they then go from there. So you can see if they then visit other pages, if they go to contact you. So Jetpack on WordPress is a fantastic free tool, and it tells me everything I need to know. One great thing is it tells you what search engine terms people use. So actually, if nobody's using the right search engine terms, then I know I need to upgrade my SEO and the metadata and stuff on my website to make sure that people, when they search web design Yorkshire, that it comes to me first.
Yeah, SEO is a big thing. One of the things that I've learned in my time working here at Smarta is the power of Google AdWords and keywords.
Yeah.
And if you've got the right keywords in your website, you can really attract people. And people think, for keywords, it's very generic terms, and that doesn't work, because generic terms cost you a lot in the terms of how much you'd be paying if you were using Google AdWords per lead. Whereas if you go for something generic, something specific, for instance, like you said, photography Yorkshire, you're much more likely to get people who are targeted to what you do. If you go to Google AdWords, actually have a keyword planner tool. It's free. You sign up for Google AdWords, and you can look and you can see what keywords people have searched for, and then you can kind of like make a judgment on what keywords you need to include in your website, so you can get them to come to you. Uber Suggest is another one I know of, which is good for longer keywords.
I think, Daniel, just quickly to talk about the keyword planner, a good example of it is we actually know somebody who is a hairdresser in a specific borough of North London. And when she started using the keyword planner, she started looking up all the types of hairstyling that she did. So there was sort of curled haircuts, dyeing hair colors, and she was looking at it in London. And the planner shows you the monthly search volume. So basically in each month, how many people actually search for that specific phrase as you type it in. But then it also tells you how competitive it is to rank in Google for it. So obviously what you need to do is to use that to get to the sweet spot where you find the words that have search volume but aren't necessarily competitive, so they're medium or low competition, and use those on the descriptions in your about page, your home page, your help page. And what she found was that she started generating a few hundred extra weekly visits without having to spend any extra money on her site, because she started using the specific words to her locality, and she made it much more specific on the site about what she was doing. And those few hundred extra traffic every single week led to a lot more customers who did come in and had just found her on Google for free without any paid for advertising. So I think the key thing is just to make that distinction that going into the keyword planner on AdWords doesn't incur any kind of cost, and it's something very useful to keep in mind when you are building the content for your website and what writing you want on there. So it's definitely worth looking into that, and I think it would be good if you put a link to that as well in the show notes. We've only got 10 minutes left. I think just to be lunchtime friendly, it would be good if we actually maybe wrap up a little bit early for anyone who is going back to work today. If you can just maybe ask one or two more final questions for us, and that'd be really good, Daniel, but I don't think we're going to have time for more than that.
Okay. I think one of the questions here, which is from Matt, he talks about cash flow. He's a bit concerned that he's going to have the right amount of cash flow throughout the year. He doesn't know how to plan that very well. I think this one's for you, Nima, about the cash flow forecast that we asked for.
Okay, sure. So we actually ask for a 2-year cash flow forecast, and that sounds horrendous straight away, but what I would say is that a cash flow forecast is just a projection. So it's not a commitment to achieving those expenditures and incomes that you put within it. it's an opportunity to really think about at what points over the next 2 years will there be big amounts of money coming out of your business, and if those points are compatible with when you see income coming in. So we really do make sure that before we do give someone finance, that is cash flow positive. So one of the main things about the application is that you need to never be below a certain amount of money each month. And even if when you fill out the forecast template, you do appear to be, what I would say is if you submit your application and do the best you can on that aspect of it, that's when you'll then get our FD helping you and showing you what you can do. So one example is a lot of businesses we deal with aren't necessarily going to be making revenue for the first 5 to 6 months, and a lot of the money they get from us will go towards building or buying equipment or stock to sell on. And what we make sure that they do at that time is to still account for the repayments within that, plus all expenses they have, and we'll make sure that we help you get to a situation where you can manage when you buy certain things for your business so that you're always cash flow positive during those 2 years. What I would say is, again, a cash flow forecast should be taken with a pinch of salt, because I don't think I know of anyone ever who has actually hit those exact numbers. It's either going to be above or below. It will never, you might in 3 months change your pricing model. So obviously the amount of units you sell might be more than you initially predicted, but you might be charging less now through the feedback you've received over the first few months. So what I would say is, don't worry too much about it and see it as a chance to just plan a little bit ahead and make sure that your business stays cash flow positive. But it's not something that you're going to be held accountable for, and if you don't hit those numbers in 5 months time, suddenly you're in trouble. So it is just a tool to guide you rather than a set of rules that have to totally be abided by. So just get something in, do as much as you can, and we'll help.
Right, I think we've got time for one more question, haven't we, Nima? Okay.
Yeah.
Andy's asked, let me just find it here. He wants to know how to engage social media. He's in a business-to-business kind of business, as in he's dealing with other businesses rather than customers, and he's not quite sure on how to get people to come to his business with social media like Facebook and Twitter.
Do you want to answer that first, Austin? And I have a few thoughts as well, but I'll let you go first because you mainly deal with businesses.
Yeah. So if I get a business coming to me saying, how can I engage with social media, the first question I ask is, do they actually need it? And it's easy to say, oh yeah, I definitely need social media, but it's knowing, either finding someone who can do it for you or learning how to use it in the right way. And I mean, the great thing about social media and linking up through different networks is that I can actually boost your website on like Google searches. So if you just search for someone's name, it can pop up with all the social media they're attached to. And obviously, if your business is linked into that as well, that can be very helpful. So one of my clients, a joiner, who would say he's not really fantastic with social media, I basically kind of have done some basic training with him how to engage with his audience. And it's just a simple case of updating people with projects he's working on. And he's actually found that there are more people now linking back to him just through him using Facebook. And he would have said, oh, I've no idea how to use it. And now he's kind of going with it himself. And that's just on Facebook. Some people find Twitter is fantastically useful. My sister runs a network called Local for Lent on Twitter, and it's linked up a few thousand businesses now, local businesses in certain areas that they promote each other's, if they've got any offers on, if they're doing any specials, whether they're a pub, whether they're someone that just makes brownies, whatever it is. And people have found that, or in that network anyway, that promoting those things just on Twitter has really helped their reach in their local area. So quite often, social media can be great for your local area because it hooks up with your little network of friends, wherever you might be. So I found linking up with businesses in the Yorkshire area has been a lot easier for me, because that's where I live and that's who I can connect to easier. Friend of mine, the photographer I've mentioned, promoted a post on Facebook, with paid advertising, and he found it very useful. And actually, got like 48,000 likes or something. And actually, through that, he's now fully booked on wedding photography for next year. And that was just through one little post he promoted in his network. And so, in some areas, it can work really well, but you've just got to work at it. And there's plenty of resources online that can teach you how to use it in the best way possible.
Thanks, Austin. I think what I would add is the message you put out on each network should be very specific. So you should look at what works on what platforms. So obviously, Facebook is quite image heavy, and what we find is that when we do put images or we put motivational quotes, it gets a lot more engagement and reaches a lot more people. And on Twitter, we do the 80-20 rule, and that's sort of 20% you can sell and maybe put content out, so whether that's promoting one of our free events or saying enter the awards, but the other 80% should be you curating content that is about what your audience are looking for. So I always say to a lot of people that even before you launch the business, you should aim to start building a social media presence and get the brand out there, even if it's just your personal brand. So I had a friend who wanted to start a premium sugar brand, and he spent 3-4 months before he actually went about doing any of it or launching a company or knowing the name, following all the sort of sugar experts, as silly as it sounds, and getting to know them, starting conversations with them, finding those who blog about that stuff, and just building a following of people who were interested in that. And he would put posts out to new things that were coming out, even though they weren't his own product, but it meant that his audience could trust him and know that he would find the stuff they were interested in reading about. But that's obviously very different because, on Twitter, you can have conversations with people without it showing up on those who follow you's timeline. So if you put someone's handle first before you write anything, no one else sees that unless they come specific to your profile. So that's a chance to not spam your followers, but still spark conversations with as many people as possible and become known as an expert in that area, which will help once you do then go on to sell the product or service, because obviously everyone will know that you've been curating that content for a while. So I think, again, LinkedIn is a very different kind of platform, and what you put on there should be focused on what you yourself, how you consume information on that platform. So as any business owner, whether it's B2B or B2C, when you make the decision on what platforms to make a company profile for or a company page, you should really think about the type of content you put on there rather than just copying and pasting the same post across all the platforms you're on, because I think each platform is very unique in the way people engage on it. So there's a lot of stuff online about it, and we've got stuff on our site. So if anyone's interested as well, if you let us know afterwards, we have something, I think it's about 50 pages. It's a PDF where we talk about Twitter and social media marketing for small business owners. So we can send you a copy of that, and it's totally free, obviously, and it just gives you some advice on how to grow your Twitter base if you're already using it, and it has another section about how to get started if you're not. So do let us know, and myself and Daniel will get that over to you. I think if we just wrap up and everyone get back, it's 2:00 now. I think, Austin, thank you so much for coming along today and sharing your experience. It's been really inspirational and helpful hearing all about what you're up to. I think if you've got maybe one final takeaway before we end this, if you can maybe give your one key thing you would change. So if you would go back to when you were just about to start out, what would be the one thing you would do differently, if there is anything at all, based on what you've learned now?
That is a very good question. To actually undertaking of the business. So I wouldn't go into it with having that mindset. And
I think we're just having technical difficulties
makes
here.
a huge difference in the way.
Sorry about this. I think think Austin's internet is just semi-conked out on him. We're not getting any audio from him. I think we should wrap up here. Austin,
Oh,
are you back?
yeah, I'm still here. Picking up with my.
Yeah, I think your connection's going in and out now. So I think we should use this as a time to wrap up. So I'd like to thank Nima and Austin for attending this webinar, for giving their thoughts. We'll be sending the recording out to everyone who's been listening. And yeah, thanks. Have a great day.